Hey guys, welcome back. Today is Wednesday, which means we're in the book Anxious for Nothing by John MacArthur. We're on chapter 8, and the title is Do All Things Without Complaining.
Now, if you are actually struggling with a lot of anxiety, and chances are if you clicked on this video, you are, we would recommend going back and at least watching the intro and the first chapter because we feel like those will help you the most. Other than that, we are going to jump in and read chapter 8 and see what kind of insight it has about living without complaining, which I feel like we all need a lesson in that.
So Amber's going to read first, and let's get into it.
Do all things without complaining. One of the first biblical passages we examined on anxiety was Paul's straightforward command in Philippians 4:6, be anxious for nothing. In the last 2 chapters of his book, we will probe 2 other passages from Philippians. One comes from the command, and the other comes afterward. They bracket our understanding of how to attack anxiety by specifying a habit to avoid and an attitude to cultivate. Follow through with what you learn, and you will see for yourself that Paul wasn't issuing an impossible command. Our first text is, do all things without grumbling or disputing, that you may prove yourself to be blameless and innocent children of God, above reproach, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you appear as light in the world, holding fast to the word of life. And that is Philippians 2:14-16. So the first little subtitle is Discontent in Society. We live in a society that loves to complain. Ironically, the most indulged society the world has known thus far is also the most discontent. The more people have, the more discontent they are apt to be with what they have. And these types don't believe in suffering in silence. We seem to be breeding a generation of complainers. While listening to the radio, I happened to catch a thought-provoking speech by a psychologist. He was talking about young people characterized by a complaining attitude, a distaste for responsibility, and a sullen discontent that nothing is ever the way that they would like it. This psychologist put forth the thesis that this discontented generation is mainly the product of small families. So you need to have lots of kids. Most families in America either have none, 1, or 2 children. The theory is that small families in a materialistic society are apt to breed selfish, self-indulgent children. Picture this scene at the breakfast table. The mother asks her 1 or 2 children, what would you like me to fix you to take to school for lunch? One says peanut butter and the other says tuna. She says okay and starts preparing customized lunches. When the kids are about to go off to school, she asks, what would you like for dinner when you come home? The first kid, oh, well, I guess I'd like this. The second kid, I'd like that. Okay, the mom responds. Whose mom is this?
Yeah, really.
My mom wasn't like that.
She's like, what do you want for dinner? And you tell her what you want. Okay, well, I'll make what I want anyways.
Or, well, we don't have this, so we can't do that right now. Also, I'm a mom, and no. Mom responds, I'll have this for you and that for you. By the way, what time will you be home? What time should I plan dinner? The kids collaborate and say, let's see. We'll probably be home somewhere between 4 and 5. Better make it 5:30. If you are raised in a family with 3 children or more, a different reality is apt to prevail. Maybe that's what it is. When you get up in the morning and make it down to the kitchen, you get handed a bag. And when you leave the house, your mother says to you, dinner's at 5:30. You're here, you eat.
That's about right.
At the dinner table in a small family, the mother may have practically broken her back to prepare some exotic cuisine. After taking one bite, at least one of the kids will probably say, I don't like it. I want something else. If one child in a family of 5 or 6 children makes that comment, the kids next to him or her says, good, and gobbles it up. The difference is that most small families in America, authority defers to the child. In most large families, mainly because of logistics, the child must defer to authority. So what you have, says the psychologist, is a generation growing up in an environment where authority defers to them. It is the unfortunate product of a child-centered parenting. When I was a child, I looked forward to growing up because I wanted my freedom. I was expected to conform to my surroundings, and I did. I ate what my parents gave me and wore whatever my mother bought me. I don't remember ever going shopping with my mother. I don't think I even entered a department store as a young person. I conformed to the system, which may sound negative at first, but it really wasn't considering the positive effect it produced. I was eager to assume the responsibility of adulthood, so I could be free to make my own choices.
I went shopping all the time. Anytime she left, I went.
I did. Well, like if she went shopping, but we didn't go shopping. Not near as much whenever I was younger as when you were younger. Like, we never, hardly ever went to like a clothing store or anything like that. The only time we ever did was for school clothes. And I know that we were blessed to be able to go buy school clothes. But we did really grow up in kind of a more poor situation. And throughout the year, we didn't have the money to really even travel to stores very often. The gas money to go, or even like the money for food while we were out or anything like that. And I feel like that's a luxury that today most people don't realize is something that they're blessed to have. The reverse is now true. Children who grow up controlling the family environment don't want to become adults, because that means conformity for them. They don't want to get a job because nobody at work is going to say, how would you like your office decorated? And what time would you like to break for lunch? Rather, they put you on an assembly line or in some other place and you're expected to conform to their rules. No wonder we have a generation of young people who don't want to grow up and leave home. Ask the average high school or college student what he or she wants to do after graduation, and you'll receive the usual response, I don't know. The psychologist theorizes that so many of them feel this way because they're postponing responsibility. The freedom of their childhood seems so much more attractive than conformity to the system. Their parents, although usually well-meaning, were unwittingly training them to be irresponsible. When reality hits, when children raised this way are finally forced to get a job, count on them looking for whatever offers the most amount of money for the least amount of work. They have no work ethic or sense of excellence for excellence sake. The objective of these adult children is to finance themselves so they can indulge in the things that they enjoy. I mean, I feel like that's the objective for most people. But an appropriate bumper sticker on their car might read, "He who dies with the most toys wins." Again, I feel like that's not really just like the last couple of generations. No. I feel like that's definitely, like there's definitely those people in older generations, but maybe it's more prominent now. They try to make the most out of the necessary evil of adulthood by collecting gadgets, boats, cars, vacation trips, and whatever else might reignite the flame of their lost childhood. That is a hollow pursuit, however, because not even when one has an abundance does his life consist of possessions, says Jesus in Luke 12:15. These adult children will feel empty inside and know that something is missing, rather than seeing it because they're emphasizing the physical at the expense of the spiritual. Most will assume it's because they don't have enough, and whatever they have is never enough to these individuals. Moreover, their attitude is infectious, and that's why our society tends to be critical. The complaints have become more and more petty over time. Think about things that most people complain about, get anxious over, and even become enraged over. You may feel convicted. I know I've been guilty of letting some of these things bother me more than they should. Something as commonplace as a traffic jam can bring on incredible anger. Slow drivers in front of us, people who cut us off, can be enough to make us fall back into sin. Talkative people irritate us. Long lines, short lines, any lines drive us crazy. We want it our way, and we want it now. Think how distressed people become over crying babies, rather than accepting them as a part of life. A terrible brooding discontent has led to a frightening increase in child abuse. Phone calls at inconvenient times, misplaced keys, non-housebroken puppies, stuck zippers, tight clothes, unsuccessful diets, being rushed or interrupted by someone. We get distressed by the biggies, don't we? Now, if we were in Hiroshima, and it is 1945, we have a problem worthy of considerable concern. But just because we lost out on a promotion, a business deal, or something else we wanted doesn't mean we are to complain about it and become anxious. We can surely find a way to survive, calm down, and review the situation. Our concerns are productive when they lead to a sensible course of action, but not when they lead to anxiety. Beware that our concerns are far more apt to follow the path of anxiety and misery if accompanied by complaints.
It is a sin to complain against God, and we must see our complaints as such. Who are you, O man, who answers back to God? Asked Paul rhetorically. The thing molded will not say to the molder, why did you make me like this? Will it? Complaining against God is out of place and completely inappropriate. Don't be fooled into thinking only the worst blasphemers only the worst blasphemers commit that sin. Isn't it God we are really complaining against when we gripe about our circumstances? After all, He is the one who put us where we are. A lack of thankfulness and contentment is ultimately an attack on God. Complainers have a devastating effect on the church. Some are apostates whom Jude described as grumblers, finding fault, following after their own lusts, Their sin is so defiling because it is highly contagious. We find abundant proof of that in the Old Testament. Let's consider it carefully so we can protect ourselves and our churches from descending into a morass of complaints, discontentment, anxiety, and misery. Discontent in the Old Testament. This is the scene. The Israelites are in the wilderness, heading toward the promised land after God miraculously delivered them from centuries of bondage in Egypt. God tells them to occupy the land. Joshua, Caleb, and 10 others spy out the land and give their report. Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "We should by all means go up and take possession of it, for we shall surely overcome it." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are too strong for us." So they gave out to the sons of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, "The land through which they had gone and spying it out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. We became like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight." Then all the congregation grumbled against Moses and Aaron and said to them, "Would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would that we had died in the wilderness? And why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become plunder. Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt?" So they said to one another, "Let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt." Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces in the presence of all the assembly, and Joshua and Caleb spoke to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, saying, "Do not rebel against the Lord, and do not fear the people of the land. Their protection has been removed from them, and the Lord is with us." But all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Numbers 13:30, 14:7, 9, and 10. Those 10 spies, those prophets of doom, kicked off nationwide discontent by complaining against what God had commanded them to do. What does Scripture say happened to them? As for the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, and who returned and made all the congregation grumble, even those men who brought out the very bad report of the land died by a plague before the Lord. Numbers 14:36 and 37. Does that give you an idea of what God thinks about grumblers? They spread a noxious poison that quickly infects other people. They have the capability of setting into motion a group panic attack. That happened many times in Israel's history. Poor Moses had to suffer complaints regularly about his leadership and the food God provided for the people. According to Psalm 106, the complaints of the Israelites tempted God in the desert. They despised the pleasant land. They did not believe in his word, but grumbled in their tents. Therefore he swore to them that he would cast them down in the wilderness, and that he would cast their seeds among the nations. Verses 14 and 24 through 27. That divine judgment has dogged their nation throughout its history. The New Testament makes it clear that the church is to learn from Israel's mistake. After describing the incredible blessings Israel enjoyed from God's hand, Paul stated, "Nevertheless, with most of them God was not well pleased, for they were laid low in the wilderness." Now these things are examples for us, that we should not crave evil things, as they also craved, nor grumble, as some of them did and were destroyed. 1 Corinthians 10:5-6 and 10. Complaining is the symptom of a deep-seated spiritual problem, a failure to trust God and submit to his will. It is not a trivial matter. The one who does not believe God has made him a liar. 1 John 5:10. Here's a better text to adhere to. Why should any living mortal offer complaint in view of his sin? Lamentations 3:39. God has forgiven our sins, and the only proper way to say thank you is to be grateful. As we learned previously, a spirit of thanksgiving drives away anxiety and also makes it hard to complain.
We're going to stop there. That's about half of the chapter. And then next week... You're pretty good at kicking that out of the way. And then next week we will read Contentment as a Command. Is there any more? The reason behind the command, and Stop Complaining for Your Own Sake, and Stop Complaining for the Sake of Non-Christians. That's all the subtitles for next week. Anyways, so we will learn more about how to be content next week. As far as this one goes, there's a lot to think about. I feel like. I think we're all very guilty of this all the time. When you think about back to the people in Exodus, whenever they were leaving Exodus and they were complaining about not having food or the food that they wanted or not having water, and God was providing their basic needs, and they were complaining and complaining. Well, we have an abundance. Like, we have way more than our basic needs taken care of.
Yeah.
And yet we still complain. And so very eye-opening about how petty we are. How petty I am. Let me rephrase that. I don't know if you guys are as petty as I am. Anyways, that's it for this one. We hope you guys enjoyed reading with us.
If you are enjoying this book, we post videos every Wednesday. And we also post videos on Mondays and Fridays. Mondays we do Bible studies, and on Fridays we do some kind of fun video. Makeup, food, fashion, DIYs. You never know what you're going to get because we never know what we're going to do.
Other than that, we hope you guys have a good day, have a good week, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.